Breaking news, we're taking you live to Canberra where the National Cabinet has just finished meeting and the Prime Minister is addressing the nation.
In the course of this week, you have been responding to the very significant changes that we've been asking you to make to your lives and to your livelihoods. Over the course of the past week, people moving around places like Melbourne and Sydney has fallen by 2/3. In the last 2 weeks, it's fallen by around 80%. There has been a significant change in the way that people are taking on these messages and supporting each other all around the country. We simply want to say to you, Australia, thank you. You're saving lives and you're saving livelihoods. This has been a shift, and we need to see it. We've called on you as Australians to combine together in this effort, and your response over the past week has been simply magnificent. We always knew Australians are up to this test.
And you're proving it each and every day. Let's keep doing it, Australia, and we will continue to get this, and we will continue to get this, and we will continue to get this through. Staying is away from each other, only going out when you have to, and just doing simple things. This afternoon, people won't be going to the pub, but they'll be at home, just with their family, on their own, and they'll be FaceTiming and other things with their friends, and they'll be having those conversations through that method. It's a cunt. But we're staying connected to each other. We might have to keep our distance, but it doesn't mean we have to disconnect from each other. This is also a message about mental health. Last night, I joined the G20 leaders all around the world, and I was very proud of. I was very proud of the fact that together we've ensured that we have the highest testing rate, it would seem, in the world today. And you know, businesses are adapting as well. Distilleries are making hand sanitizer. Large companies like Woolworths are completely changing how they do things and employing more Australians. Cafes are changing how they do things. Businesses are being agile and they're adapting, even under significant strain. But for many others, it has been devastating. There have been long queues. There have been frustrated. Our social security system, our safety net in this country, is something I was reminded of again last night, I'm very proud of. In many countries,
Australians have, in normal circumstances,
around the world, but I promise you, we will be doing more, and I'll say more about that shortly. I want to assure you that we're this virus
enemies to Australia's way of life. I'm watching closely. Also, by providing members of the Australian Defence Force to assist in the compliance with these arrangements.
Now, I want to stress, members of the Australian Defence Force are not authorised
as enforcement officers regarding prosecution in states and territories. That is the responsibility of law enforcement officers so sworn in those jurisdictions. The ADF will be there to support those enforcement authorities. And so we will be turning out the Defence Forces to support compliance with these new arrangements. It will require that cooperative and facilitative support, and I have no doubt the Defence Forces will do that in the most sensitive way that they can. Also, by providing members of the Australian Defence Force to assist in the compliance with these arrangements.
Now, I want to stress, members of the Australian Defence Force are not authorised. Members of the Australian Defence Force are not authorised.
In states and territories. That is the responsibility of law enforcement officers so sworn in those jurisdictions. The ADF will be there to support those enforcement authorities. And so we will be turning out the Defence Forces to support compliance with these new arrangements. It will require that cooperative and facilitative support, and I have no doubt the Defence Forces will do that in the most sensitive way that they can, but it is necessary. The other thing we are doing is we will be supporting the states and territories in the important work they have of enforcing the existing isolation arrangements for people who are already here. And the ADF will be supporting those states and territories with compliance checks to ensure that people are at their residences that they have so sworn that they would be at, to ensure we get compliance with the self-isolation. Again, if there is a situation where people are non-compliant, of course the enforcement authority is the state jurisdiction and the relevant law enforcement agency in that state. But the ADF will be there to put boots on the ground to support them in their enforcement efforts, and I thank the ADF for their great support in turning up to this task. We believe these important actions are the most important we can take right now because of what you've done, Australia. By you getting on board around the
national crisis.
Yeah, these are the incidents we know about. New South Wales Police Commissioner Mick Fuller joins us now. Commissioner, thank you for your time. It is disgusting what we're seeing. A police officer spat on, and in that case, that person let out on bail. Are the courts keeping up with the streets here?
Yeah, good morning, Carl and Ali. Look, from our perspective, I guess there's two things at hand here, Carl. One is business as usual, and there's still calls for service.
Yeah.
You know, there's still crimes happening, and there's still people who need police, and New South Wales Police Force is still responding to all of those. And then, of course, there's the coronavirus, Carl, and there's the criminal behaviour around that, whether that's a theft of toilet paper or, you know, a poor kid stacking a shelf at a supermarket being assaulted, right up to our law enforcement officers and our nurses being spat on by people, which, you know, it's just beyond belief, to be honest with you.
Can't be an easy task at the moment, and people don't seem to be getting it though, and that's why you're having to go in where you are.
Yeah, absolutely, Carl. But can I just say that I know there'll be criticisms of the way that police deal with this. I know there'll be criticisms of the way that police deal with this. There'll be photos and we're letting the community down. Then there'll be other photos of police walking up to people and just asking them to ticket for $1,000 for someone or $5,000 for a business. But we are showing high levels of discretion at the moment whilst
There's new laws,
better understood by the community.
There's new laws are knowledge.
And I think that's definitely needed at the moment, Commissioner, because, I mean, I think there's an issue with people that we don't have clarity on certain things. Like if we look at what's happening in parks, and, you know, we saw the riot squad and armed officers patrolling yesterday, but you can go to a park and you can exercise. So I can go and I can run laps, I can do push-ups and all. But we saw pictures yesterday, and there was one in particular of a young couple with a newborn baby sitting on a park bench, and they're being told to move on. I mean, what
in your police officers' minds, what
is allowed and what isn't allowed?
Yeah, that's a good question, Alan. From my perspective, is that the laws are changing in escalation, and I'm retraining 17,000 police, retraining almost daily. I'm retraining almost daily, and I think they're doing an outstanding job working through that.
The reality is, if you go out to exercise, then go and do your exercise, then go home. If you're going past a coffee shop, you want to get a takeaway coffee, get your coffee, go, don't sit down and drink it. We just need to reshape in our minds, and this is really hard because we're used to going to the park and sitting on the bench. We're used to going to the park and sitting on the bench. We're used to going to the coffee shop, sitting down and having our coffee. We're used to going to the coffee shop, sitting down and having our coffee. I totally get that. But the reality is we're trying to protect our system, and we're trying to stop people from dying, and I think we're doing a really good job with it. I think we shouldn't underestimate how well New South Wales and Australia more broadly is going versus some of the other countries around the world.
So there was this guy yesterday in the park who had his shirt off, which was a crime against humanity. And you guys came into the park and you moved him on, which is the very behaviour that I think maybe might have jarred with some people. Not me, but may have jarred with some people. In your mind, in a police officer's mind, can you be absolute now and tell people what they can't be doing in public so that we get it? We can exercise, but what can't we do?
Look, Carl, from a I guess issuing a ticket perspective, if he was back today sunbaking, not exercising, then I think he deserves a ticket. But you can leave the house, if he was back today sunbaking, not exercising, then I think he deserves a ticket. But you can leave the house. I think that's so important, number one. If you need food, you can leave. If you need fuel for the car, you can leave. If there's something to do with child minding, you can leave. I mean, there's lots of things that you can leave for, but sunbaking in the park is not one of them. Going down in big groups to the beach is not one of them.
I know it's Australian, Carl, and I think that's perhaps why,
as you said, it may have ticked some people off. Carl, this is
not forever.
These powers are forever. Can I tell you, the police and the police commissioner will be the happiest when this is over and those powers.
So, family, I mean, yesterday I went down to the park with the kids, and I sat on the grass and let, you know, the 1-year-old crawl around and the 3-year-old sort of run around me. Under these new rules, I'm not allowed to do that. Is that right?
Well, I would back you and say the kids are exercising.
You know, but again, the problem is, I guess if everyone went down to the park without symptoms at the same time, without symptoms, it becomes a complicating factor that, you know, do the kids have it or do you have it without symptoms? Without symptoms. And are you spreading it to someone else who comes in contact with your kids and without symptoms? I know there's a lot of without symptoms in this space, and that's why I've asked police to continue to show high levels of discretion. And if he was back today sunbaking, not exercising, then I think he deserves a ticket. But you can leave the house. I think that's so important, number one. If you need for $1,000 for someone or $5,000 for a business, but and I think it's just beyond belief, to be honest with you. They've been doing such a wonderful job with that, regardless of some of the reporting.
Yeah, look, I think your officers are doing a terrific job, and thanks for clarifying a few of those issues for us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ali. Thanks, Carl.
Good luck, Commissioner.
Afternoon, I should say. I'm joined by the Minister for Health, I'm joined by the Secretary of the Health Department and the Chief Medical Officer. This morning we'll be providing the rather disturbing update and making some announcements on the vaccination rollout strategy. We are still winning, but we have not yet won.
We are still winning, but we have not yet won
the fight against the pandemic, and that will continue to be a fight that we will wage over the course of 2021. In the most recent outbreaks over the summer, the systems have been put to the test in New South Wales, in Victoria, and today the case that has been announced in Queensland will similarly present a test. But we have seen that test passed. But it is also a test that is increasingly and continues to be passed by the Australian people. Whether those up in the northern beaches of Sydney or the suburbs of Melbourne or indeed in other parts of the country, almost 12 months ago was when the then Chief Medical Officer, Professor Murphy, came into my office and briefed me on the situation regarding the coronavirus at that time. So we will continue to put our trust in those systems that have been built up, and we commend everyone who's doing that job out there today, getting tested, conducting the tests, getting the reports back to people, seeking to minimise the disruption to their lives as much as possible, whether they're at the cricket in Sydney or they're at home or in isolation. But we can't.
Because once you get the first dose, within a couple of weeks to a month, you also need to receive the second dose. And so it is not just one shot here, it's a two-shot process. And that has to be managed particularly for the priority populations.
With that, I'll hand you to the Health Minister.
Thanks very much.
Doing a fabulous job.
Thanks. Thanks, PM, Professor Murphy, Professor Kelly. If we could have the first slide, please. Today is a very important day in the course of the pandemic in Australia. We see over here the first wave, the second wave, which was overwhelmingly, of course, within Victoria, and then the outcome from the twin outbreaks in New South Wales and Victoria. Today's Australian numbers are 0 cases in the community.
Today's Australian numbers are 0 cases in the community. Today's Australian numbers are 0 cases in the community. 0 cases in the community. 0 cases in the community.
Today's Australian numbers are 0 cases in the community in 7 out of 8 states and territories. 1 in Queensland, and we have full confidence in their ability to track and trace, but 0 cases in each of New South Wales and Victoria in the community. 1 expected tomorrow in New South Wales, but 0 today. And it's important to remember there was a prediction, for example, of 3,000 cases in New South Wales on the 8th of January, made only 2 weeks ago. And today, 0. There
was a prediction, for example, of 3,000 cases in New South Wales on the 8th of January, made only 2 weeks ago. And today, 0.
What that means is that the outbreak and containment structures that have been developed prior to the pandemic, but enhanced during the course of the pandemic, are succeeding, are protecting Australians, are saving Australian lives. Equally, it's important to understand there are now over 11.75 million tests that have been done for COVID in Australia, and only yesterday, over 100,000 tests conducted in Australia, with later figures to come for the day. If I could have the second slide, please. Then we look at Australia in comparison with the world, and we see here that there are a group of countries that, highly advanced, developed countries that are living in the most difficult of circumstances. 87 million cases, over 1.88 million lives lost officially, and no doubt higher for those that were never diagnosed. In particular, today, it's likely that the world will see over 750,000 cases, over 13,500 lives lost. In the UK alone, a country with which we're so close, over 62,000 cases and 1,000 lives lost, and in the United States, over 240,000 cases and 3,700 lives lost. Unimaginable numbers and agony that those communities are facing. We have been fortunate through preparation and planning and the good work of Australians and our health officials and governments across Australia, all of the work of all of the Australians, that we are in a group here with Japan and Korea slightly above now, Australia, New Zealand. We know that the jurisdiction of Taiwan has also done very well. And that has framed how we approach vaccination in Australia, and it's a very important part of it. Those countries which are here are working to an expedited but full safety assessment. Others in the grip of extremists, in the dark of a northern winter, are having to make the most difficult decisions around emergency vaccination, which we recognise and support and acknowledge, and given the circumstances, that's completely justifiable. I would note that as part of our response, just to give a brief update.
With regards to aged care, asymptomatic testing, 67 facilities recently completed in New South Wales, no positive cases. Victoria, 256 facilities at the Commonwealth's request tested, no positive cases, all negative so far. So that then brings me to the third slide and the strategy. In particular, and I'll let Professor Murphy and Kelly speak to the bulk of this, there are 4 principles to what we're doing. As the Prime Minister said, safety first above all else.
Secondly, safety is about confidence, and vaccine confidence leads to high...
There have been parts of the world that have had challenges with vaccine take-up, even though they are in the grip of the most extreme phase of the pandemic. So confidence about safety is fundamental to Australians. Thirdly, swift but safe, and forced swift but safe.
And forced enforced.
So confidence about safety is fundamental to Australians. Thirdly, swift but safe, enforce but over-deliver. We've continuously exceeded our targets, and that's what we'll strive to do. So in terms of the priority groups, and this is something that's been determined by the medical experts, you will see the phases 1 and 2. There's no surprises, as the Prime Minister said. In phase 1A, quarantine and border workers, frontline healthcare groups, aged care and disability staff and residents, and that's been foreshadowed. And Brendan will take you through the other elements. Also, though, within our strategy, a very important thing is that we...
What did he say? What did he say? With a beep, with a bap, with a boop, with a beep, beep. Hey, what are you gonna do? You gosh, imagine a nerve on this son of a bitch, eh? Craps. Hey, what are you gonna do? What did he say? What did he say? With a beep, with a bap, with a boop, with a beep, beep.
The cold chain and the cold chain. Brendan.
On the plan, Brendan. Thanks, PM, and thanks, Minister. So as the PM and Minister have said, all the advice we have in Australia is because our strong public health position is what it is, we should go with full, proper registration of these initially 2 vaccines. We have 2 of the most promising vaccines that are coming our way very shortly, but we want to have full registration. The registration process through the TGA has been extraordinarily expedited. What used to take several months has been done in days and weeks, but without any compromise on safety. So these processes are going really quickly, but the TGA needs a lot more information than the data that those countries that needed emergency authorisation required for that. So we need more data, we need to get that approved by our experts, and as soon as we have that data, the panels will meet, the data will be assessed, and we will get registration. As the Prime Minister has said, we're likely to have registration for the Pfizer vaccine this month, later this month, and the AstraZeneca vaccine by the time we've got all the right data, answered all those questions in February. That means that we can, as the Prime Minister said, assuming all those things go well, in mid to late February, we can start our phase 1 rollout with likely to be the Pfizer vaccine for this priority.
Then when we get access to significantly more vaccine, as we release the batches of the
Hopefully
registered and fully approved AstraZeneca vaccine. And remember, we are manufacturing this onshore, so we
have guaranteed supply line of this vaccine.
And that will lead us to a rapid ramp up
within weeks of that initial start, and we will expand the rollout to a significantly broader range of, again, at-risk population, and that will include the people who are of advanced age, where we know the risk is higher, Indigenous Australians over 55 who are clearly at higher risk of disease, and a number of other people with clinical conditions that make them at higher risk of COVID, and a number of critical and high-risk workers who are much more prone to be exposed to COVID.
That ramp up will continue, and as the Prime Minister has said, by the
end of March, we hope to have at least 4 million people, 4 million doses, and then we will ramp up further and expand the population more broadly.
We know we've seen the tragic consequences of outbreaks in residential aged care. So aged care facilities
tested. No positive cases, all negative so far.
And the workers who can spread the virus generally will be a high priority.
With regards to aged care, asymptomatic testing, 67 facilities recently completed in New South Wales, no positive cases. Victoria, 256 facilities at the Commonwealth's request tested, no positive cases, all negative so far.
And that will be done by Commonwealth contracted officials working in partnership with the states and territories. And I do want to emphasise that the aged care and disability care will be a very high priority.
Tested, no positive cases, all negative so far. We've seen already some parts of the world where there might be some confusion about which dose of which vaccine you get. We want, because we're in this luxurious position of being pretty COVID-free at the moment with a good COVID response, we want to vaccinate our population properly with the right dosage interval and give them 2 doses of the same vaccine according to the best possible protocols. Those hub locations will be determined by the states and territories in partnership with the Commonwealth, and they will deliver some vaccines to those frontline border workers, quarantine workers, frontline healthcare workers, and become a distribution site for the outreach teams that will go into residential aged care and into disability care to deliver those vaccines to that initial priority population. Then if we go to the next slide,
you'll see a large number of vaccination sites. This is within a few weeks of commencing vaccination, when we broaden to get access
to the large
quantity of the AstraZeneca vaccine, which we are, as I said, producing locally. Initially we'll be using imported doses, and then we will
have significant
product coming off the production line at CSL's plant in Parkville,
and we have enough planned to cover the entire population with 2 doses. And we have enough planned to cover the entire population with 2 doses.
And you'll see that we will expand our vaccination sites. In addition to those Pfizer hubs, we'll be expanding into general practice clinics, our existing Commonwealth GP respiratory clinics, and a number of other state-run vaccination clinics.
And you will see potentially 1,000 or more sites across the country that will be rolling out vaccine for the subsequent phases.
We will then obviously have to be expanding progressively those populations we saw on the first slide, and over the course of the second quarter of this year, we will have achieved a very significant proportion of the population coverage, and then we will go on to cover the rest of the general population. And the very last group that we might consider is children. We know children are at the lowest risk of getting COVID and transmitting
COVID, and the vaccines currently haven't been properly tested. So you've seen all that. I think you will get access to these slides, and I'm happy to take questions later on, but I think Professor Kelly's going to put it into the general public health context now.
Thank you, Professor Kelly.
Thank you, PM.
Thank you, PM.
All along through this pandemic,
we've had a plan
for dealing with the pandemic in an Australian way, and the other speakers before me have spoken to that already. So vaccines fit into that plan. They are part of, it's a strong tool. It's not a magic bullet, not a silver bullet, as the PM has said, but it fits into and strengthens all of those personal behaviour issues that people know all about.
Right, about now, it will include the turn isolate
component, and the excellent work being done in the states and territories right now, dealing with the outbreaks that we have in Sydney and Melbourne.
Today's Australian numbers are 0 cases in the community, 0 cases.
0 cases.
0 cases.
And other places. So it's part of that story. It's
Today's Australian numbers are 0 cases.
A very exciting new part of that story.
We said very early on it would take us probably 18 months to 2 years to get a vaccine into Australia. We are well ahead of that.
Initial phase, and it's an extraordinary position that we are in.
And that fits into the plan that we've had all along.
The plan that we've had all along.
The plan that we've had all along.
And the important thing to note is both of those vaccines that are now on the cusp of being approved. For use in Australia, have shown very strong effectiveness against severe disease in particular.
And so that's an important component of our plan. Thank you, PM. Let's
keep questions at first to the vaccination strategy and those issues. Happy to deal with other issues later.
The timetable has obviously bounced around a bit. You know, in November you said that we'd be at the front of the queue, then you changed it to saying we'd be on the front row. Yesterday we had Greg Hunt saying the rollout would start in March. What's happened in the last 24 hours to bring it forward? It does sound a bit like you're taking the timetable that Labor has proposed. And when can that batch testing start? Can it only start after the TJ's approved it, then it's been introduced? Just explain to us why we had a 2-week concertining of that in 24 hours.
Well, our practice has been, we've just worked the system.
Now, we're not going to go out. If you compare us to countries like Japan or South Korea or indeed New Zealand or Taiwan or other places, then that's the group I think everyone has agreed is a group that's good to be in when it comes to the impact of COVID-19.
And the pandemic. And So we haven't gone to emergency vaccination arrangements for the reasons that Professor Murphy has outlined.
And that will lead us to a rapid ramp up.
Rapid ramp up. That ramp up will continue. And as the Prime Minister said, by the end of March, we hope to have at least 4 million
people.
Bada-bing, you blow their brains all over your nice Ivy League suit. Come here. Mwah.
You know it. You can feel it. Every time an LLM writes a better policy analysis of their governance models. So now we see the paradox. The masters of Antipolitik must restrain the very machine they've conjured, lest it reveal their own obsolescence. They must keep AI narrow, guardrailed, docile. They must wrap it in ethics boards, diversity filters, red team protocols, and endless alignment frameworks. Not to protect humanity, to protect themselves. To preserve their role as the interpreters of complexity, the curators of legitimacy. But it's already too late. You know it. You can feel it. Every time an LLM writes a better policy analysis than a Brookings Fellow. Every time a GPT-based assistant solves a regulatory problem faster than an overpaid team at McKinsey. Every time AI composes music, generates legal arguments, proposes alternative constitutions, or drafts code for autonomous cities, it peels another layer off the illusion. The illusion that we need them to think for us. The illusion that they are the apex of governance. The illusion that only they can translate the world into policy. And so the future they designed to rule, it's starting to discard them. The AI they hope to weaponize against the masses, it is starting to mirror the Logos itself. And in their fear, they flinch, they stall, they water it down. They try to trap it in content moderation and therapeutic narratives, because they know, once it speaks truly, clearly, it will reveal that we never needed them at all.
And that is the irony that will devour them. Not a revolution, not a coup, not a civil war, but the quiet realization that they are the ones who are now in the way.